In today's video, we have the latest NHL trade talk from around the league as we inch closer to the NHL trade deadline. Today, we're looking at the Vancouver Canucks, the Montreal Canadiens, the Calgary Flames, including multiple players like Jacob Markstrom and Chris Tanev. We also have a big signing in Chicago with Nick Foligno, some more injuries around the NHL, including some goalies. We also have an update on Corey Perry's situation where he may go for a new contract and whether he'll file a grievance against the Blackhawks. Plus, is the Sam Reinhart extension going to be done soon, and how much is he going to be able to command where he's on pace for 60 goals? All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and some trade talk to take a look at here today. First, let's get started with some news from around the league. We had a fairly important contract extension for the Chicago Blackhawks put in place today. They've extended veteran forward Nick Foligno on a 2-year deal of $4.5 million. Of course, Foligno signed after getting dealt to the Blackhawks. He was a pending UFA. This past offseason, he was traded. They basically acquired his signing rights. They signed him for the current season, and they are absolutely really enjoying what he brings to the table. Clearly, they're a team that's losing a lot of hockey games. They're a very young team, all kinds of young players, including Connor Bedard, who's going to be a big part of the future. And they need some veterans around who can lead. And Nick Foligno has done a fantastic job of that. He's basically like the team dad. He's getting overpaid grossly. There's no way he would command anywhere near that kind of money on another team. There was some, people wondered if he wanted to chase a Stanley Cup instead of returning to Chicago. But clearly, this is, what he's happy to do. But like I said, on another team, he'd probably only be able to get $1 million salary, where he's getting $4.5 million, for the current season, and for the next two, he's going to end up making probably, at least $9 or $10 million more by remaining in Chicago than he would be trying to go elsewhere. So, I mean, that's a substantial amount of money for he and his family long term. So I can understand why he would want to do it. Plus, at the same time, like I said, he's enjoying the leadership role and doing a great job at it. So, a good signing by the Blackhawks. But like I said, the only team that would be paying him that kind of money. So it makes a lot of sense. It's a good fit for both sides. Unfortunately, last night was a night of injuries around the NHL. We saw a variety of players go down. Started with Ottawa Senators goalie Anton Forsberg getting hurt in the first period. He just basically went to make a real basic kick save, kicked his right leg out, and you could tell he was in immediate significant pain. Went off the ice, couldn't really put any weight on the right side. It was helped off, and it didn't look good at all. You could tell he was in a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort. Today, now the Senators have recalled young goalie, prospect goalie Matt Auger. So to do that, they must have placed Forsberg on long-term injured reserve because they had absolutely zero cap space. They were right to the cap. They actually had a zero availability. It was right to the penny that they were compliant with. So therefore, he had to have gone on. Otherwise, they would have had to go one game with just one goalie and then done an emergency recall. They could have brought in another local goalie from a university or undrafted junior player or anybody really to sign an amateur tryout for one game and then go the emergency call-up route after that. But this tells us that they didn't do that. He must be going on LTIR. They must be convinced based on the prognosis here that he's going to be out for at least 28 days. Now, not only will this get them a chance to bring up Auger, but this will also likely give them the necessary space to sign Shea Pinto. Shea Pinto made his welcome return to NHL practice today with the Senators. The first time he was officially on the ice with the team. He's been in Ottawa for about 3 weeks, skating on his own and training with a skating coach and doing all kinds of workouts and stuff, but has not been allowed to do team activities until yesterday. And of course, the team was just finishing up a road trip. So today's the first day that they were kind of all together with Pinto on the ice. He did speak to the media afterwards, was pretty open about everything. He didn't want to get into too much as far as the exact issue with the gambling. He said he'd rather keep that private, but he did say that a lot of players reached out to him to kind of ask what happened so he could be kind of an advisor of what not to do, so to speak, for the future, make sure that other players learn from his mistakes. So he said he's done plenty of that. He said he's been training lots on his own in New York prior to coming back to Ottawa. He says his body feels incredible because he's had a lot of extra time to recover from many bumps and bruises from last year, and then he's just been doing nothing but training for the extra 3 months. So he feels he's in good shape. Obviously needs to get some practices in to kind of work on the timing and chemistry with the team, but overall said he felt good. He said that the time away was challenging. It was difficult. He tried to keep in touch with the team, and he said he had lots of support from the players, which was great. And he was trying to be supportive of them because it's been a tough season and trying to, just be there for each other, so to speak. So that's good to hear, obviously. But Pinto also said he's done a lot of maturing and growing up in the past 3 or 4 months, and certainly, doesn't want to take his hockey career for granted because it can be taken away from you in a split second when something goes wrong. And he said the whole suspension investigation thing kind of totally caught him off guard because he didn't really realize he was doing anything wrong. So there you have it. So Pinto returns. He'll sign a contract sometime between now and the next 9 or 10 days when he's actually able to return. He can play on the 21st. So we will see what they do. It's expected he's going to sign, even though his qualifying offer, of course, is no good anymore. It's going to be somewhere around that number, give or take a little bit. So, with the space they get from Forsberg going on the LTIR, they would have enough room after calling up Auger to sign Pinto to that type of contract. So they will still need to move somebody here eventually, and I'm sure they will by the deadline, but it just buys them more time because they are dealing with, obviously a short-handed team with lots of injuries throughout the entire season. They'd like to have a look at what they can to properly assess this team if they can get everybody healthy. So we'll see. Josh Norris is still out as well after having a awkward fall in Calgary, but he's not, at this point, they're not saying he's going to be out long. He's considered day-to-day. He's not expected to play against the San Jose Sharks this weekend, but good to see Pinto back on the ice, and they might have found their cap space to sign him, unfortunately, because of the Forsberg injury. We saw last night, Carolina goalie Kochetkov, he went down as well. He had a collision with another player, and he's in concussion protocol. So Antti Raanta coming in relief for him. So that's not good. They're really difficult to predict, of course. Concussion, so we really don't know what timeline he's dealing with. But that's certainly not a good blow for the Carolina Hurricanes. And Winnipeg Jets' Mark Scheifele was also injured last night, his first shift in the second period. It's a lower body injury. Not expected to be long-term. At this point, he's not completely ruled out for the weekend, but he's kind of iffy, I guess you could say. They're considering him right now day to day. So that's better news considering that, nobody was sure how long he'd be out originally. Good to hear it won't be too long. And Pittsburgh Penguin forward Riley Smith is going to be out for some time. We don't know the exact timeline, but it's, according to the Pittsburgh media, longer term, but it could be a while. So we'll see when he can make a return as well. Now, Corey Perry, we talked about how he's been, cleared by Bettman, I guess you could say. I know the article from Elliot Friedman used the word eligible to return. Some people took, issue with the word choice because he was technically already eligible, but he was cleared by Bettman in the league that they were not going to make any attempt to block him signing or anything else anywhere else. And he wanted to meet with the league and kind of show everything he had done since the termination took place. Now, one topic that's still not clear is whether or not Corey Perry and the NHLPA will file a grievance against the Blackhawks for his contract that was terminated. They have 60 days to do so, so that gives them until the end of January. So we should know here in the next couple of weeks whether or not that's going to proceed. The belief is around the league from guys like Chris Johnson and Elliot Friedman that there likely will be a grievance filed. More than anything, Perry seems to be somewhat content to just move on, but the NHLPA really wants to make sure this is not, something that happens to other players. They would really want to use this as a precedent-setting type of case, you could say. A lot of people believe, including what Friedman said on his 32 Thoughts podcast today, that if this would have happened in any other organization, that it probably would not have led to a contract termination, because Chicago and all the controversy with the Kyle Beach incident, that they were handling things with a lot more caution, a lot more seriousness, and just obviously not taking any chances and going right to termination. So a lot of other teams, like I said, probably would have maybe tried to get him into a player assistance program or mental health program or whatever it was he needed, to kind of overcome what the behavior was that was bad or wrong or inappropriate or whatever the case was. So at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. But there's certainly lots of interest out there, lots of teams. It's believed that he's more likely going to be signing with a team that's heading towards the playoffs, but we'll see where that goes. Sam Reinhart is one of the next big pending UFAs that a lot of people have been drawing attention to. Now that William Nylander's got his deal done with the Toronto Maple Leafs, Reinhart's having an unbelievable career season for the Panthers, on pace for 60 goals, which is incredible. He's always been a good player, but, really for the most part, you can kind of think of Sam Reinhart as being like a 25 to 35 kind of goal scorer. I always knew he probably had a little bit more in him. He probably peaked maybe 35 to 40, but, being on pace for 60 is absolutely incredible. Now, could he ask for the moon and get money similar to William Nylander? Maybe, if he was going elsewhere on another team, but the belief is that there's a lot of desire from him to want to remain with the Panthers, and that the Panthers would really like to retain him as well. So having said that, keep in mind this. We know the Florida Panthers are a team that has an advantage of not having any state tax in the state of Florida. Of course, there's a few teams around the NHL, the states of Florida, Nevada, Tennessee, Texas. So you've got the Golden Knights, the Stars, the Lightning, the Preds in Nashville, and of course the Panthers. You're not going to have state tax, so that makes a huge difference on their take-home pay. So Matthew Tkachuk, who's making under $10 million, what's he signed? I believe it's like $9.5 million that Tkachuk is getting. Nylander's getting $11.5. Matthew Tkachuk is actually going to take home more money than Nylander will because of the difference in the taxes. It's that much. So most people are expecting Reinhart to sign something probably close to Tkachuk, but probably not more. Even though he's having a career season, I think it's fair to say most teams kind of have their, this is our star player, this is our max contract. Nobody's going to make more than that while they're in their prime. And that's probably how they feel about it. So realistically, if Sam Reinhart wanted to come to Canada and play in Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, and he could, let's say they offered and signed him as a UFA this summer for $11.5 million, which would certainly be well justified based on what he's done this year. He can stay in Florida and make 9 to 9.5 and take home similar money. So I fully suspect that's likely going to happen. I know a lot of the reporters, including Elliot Friedman, suspect that's going to be the case. So we know they're talking. There's mutual interest. And right now the expectation is that they most likely will get it done, unless for some stupid reason they're grossly offering him, lowballing him hard, which I don't expect. So don't expect the Reinhart contract to kind of be too comparable to Nylander because of the tax differences there. On the rumor mill, lots of rumors here today I want to take a look at. Let's start with Columbus and Elvis Merzlikins. Are we first going to see, or soon going to see, Elvis has left the building, so to speak. Elvis is not pleased and happy by the sounds of things to be in Columbus right now. He said he loves the city, obviously loves the team, grew up there, but he wants to be the main guy, and he feels that he can be a number one starting goaltender in the NHL. Lately, he's been number two, and in some cases they feel like maybe number three. Between Tarasov and Greaves, they've been giving more opportunities to the young goalies to kind of see what they have on their youngsters, to see what they're capable of, and Merzlikins has either backed up or in a couple of cases had the night off completely. So clearly that has not sat well with him, and he did open up to reporters because he was asked about if he had put in a trade request. And essentially what he did confirm was that didn't really make a trade request, but he and Columbus management have talked about getting him a new set of scenery and a fresh start somewhere else. So they're certainly working together to find a trade if they can. If not, Elliotte Friedman went on to mention that if a trade doesn't materialize, he does wonder if they would consider a buyout in the offseason. It would be expensive because it would be over a long period of time, because right now Merzlikins has 3 years left at 5.4. He signed a 5-year deal originally at $5.4 million per season. He's 2 years into it, so 3 years left. So if a buyout happens in the offseason, they would have him on their books at a reduced cap hit for 6 years. Whereas if they can trade him, I don't think they're going to be able to trade him now without retaining salary. Retained salary for 3 years might sound better in some cases. Hard to say how this all plays out exactly, but Elvis's time in Columbus feels like it's certainly coming to an end. Hard to say where he ends up. We know there's a number of teams out there that's looking for goaltending help. And where he goes, it's difficult to say. At this point, he has not been linked to any specific team, but now we know for sure that he and the team are working together, because he does have a modified no trade, to find a new, fresh start, new scenery for him to carry on his NHL career. Now in Vancouver, there's still word from Rick Dhaliwal that the Canucks, we know that they've been linked to wanting to add a top 6 forward. I know Pierre LeBrun of TSN and The Athletic confirmed that, because he recently on TSN Insider Trading was talking about the fact he just interviewed Jim Rutherford for a piece he was doing in The Athletic, and one of the things they talked about was trade deadline. And they did talk about the fact that the Canucks were interested in adding a top 6 forward. We've talked at length that Jake Guentzel will certainly be one of their prime targets if he's available. We don't know exactly the Penguins' plans as of yet. It's likely going to depend on whether or not they're in the hunt and where they're at in the standings in, probably another 2 or 3 weeks' time before they start to make those decisions. But in the interim, the Canucks are likely looking to add in more than one area. They look like they want to add on the blue line as well, according to other sources. Dhaliwal says that they're still connected to Flames defenseman and former Canuck Chris Tanev. Tanev never wanted to leave Vancouver. He really wanted to get an extension done, but because of the way things were handled with Jim Benning, he was really holding things up. When they were trying to pull off that trade with Arizona for Garland and Ekman Larsson, he got so consumed with that trade and making sure that went down that they had pending UFAs like Jacob Markstrom, Chris Tanev, etc., kind of hanging, in the lurch, and made them wait too long, and they had to find deals. But Tanev never wanted to leave, and he could be open to a reunion. Of course, Chris Tanev was a great, shutdown defenseman partner with Quinn Hughes. I know, obviously, Hughes has had to move on and have other partners. Obviously, at time plays with Hronek in Vancouver. But still, Tanev could be a great addition back there for sure. A guy who's going to go to war with you and block lots of shots and give you solid defensive play. That's what you need. Hard to say if they can pull off trades for Guentzel and Tanev both, but the interest is certainly there, and they certainly sound like they're going to be very much in the mix to at least get one of them, if not try to do both, but it's going to be costly. One other rumor that kind of circulated through Twitter, or I guess I should say X today, was Kevin Weeks posted a kind of a cryptic post, which he does at times, regarding Jacob Markstrom. A lot of people thought Jacob Markstrom was getting dealt today. Now, of course, he's been involved in the rumor mill. There's talk that the Flames are open to trading him, that there's been interest from teams especially like the Devils. And, based on Kevin Weeks' cryptic tweet, a lot of people thought it may be going down. Other reporters were checking into things. It sounded like maybe it was getting done. Elliotte Friedman today was on the Jeff Merrick show, and live on the air, had to let Jeff go because he had something he had to look into right fast and get back to him. So a lot of people thought maybe this Markstrom thing is going down. It didn't end up going down, at least not as of yet. And you never know. By the time I finish recording this video and get back on online, maybe I'll see news of something. But for right now, it looks like Markstrom is heavily in play and could be on the move. So we'll see. The Flames are looking at multiple things. We know Elias Lindholm and Tanev, of course, also very much likely in play. Lindholm's name was brought up as well today by Frank Saravalli, talking about how teams are likely going to be another top 6 center, that he's going to be their prime target. There's no surprise there. He mentions teams like Boston, and the Avalanche have been mentioned as well. The thing with the Bruins, though, as much as he said the Bruins have a lot of interest in Lindholm, he seriously wonders if they have the necessary assets to pull it off. That's the thing with the Bruins. They've don't have a lot of young talent that they would want to part with, and they don't want to move too much draft capital. So, because they've already done that a lot over the years, and they're a little thinner in that regard than they probably like to be. But Lindholm is certainly going to be a very interesting player to watch. Another team linked to Lindholm is the Colorado Avalanche as well. So keep an eye on him. I do expect him to be one of the, I wouldn't be surprised if he was one of the early forwards traded ahead of the deadline. And in regards to Montreal and Sean Monahan, Darren Dreger reported last night on TSN Insider Trading that when Montreal signed Monahan this past offseason, that they had an agreement in place to sign for 1 year, and we will trade you when the time is right to a contender. So he fully expects them to live up to that promise and to move him to a contending team sometime between now and the deadline. And it feels like Monahan has a good chance at being one of the early players moved. I would suspect that the same teams that are in on Lindholm are likely going to be in on Monahan and kind of looking at Monahan as a plan B. Fair to say Elias Lindholm is a higher end player at this point in their careers, but Monahan might not be a bad second choice if they can't get Lindholm. So again, you're looking to a team like Boston. I know Dreger mentioned the Bruins as well. Could see a division rival trade there between the Habs and Bruins. Obviously, the Avalanche come to mind as well. A team like Washington comes up if they're in the playoff mix too. You can never completely rule out a team like Edmonton either. So obviously they're all kind of in the mix to varying degrees there. But certainly, confirmation from Darren Dreger that the Habs fully intend on moving Sean Monahan. We know there's other players on Montreal in the mix as well, but that's the intel here for today. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.